Hello, Verity from Checker Siegel here, and welcome to episode 5 in our Fair Term Checker app builder series. So far we've gone through planning out the map using a mind map, why you shouldn't build in the actual app itself. I think that's my personal opinion. So I showed you kind of how to build in a mind map, and then in the third episode we had a look at other templates that you can build to try and form your thinking on different ways of getting your information out of your head, mapped out before you build it in the app. Then we had a look at the template document that gets assembled at the other end of the app, and kind of had a look at some of the details that you might want to put into your outputted document. And one of the reasons why I really like using Joseph is because of the ability to lock down those styles that I spend a lot of time and energy building out in Microsoft Word. So now, episode 5, here we are. We're at the Fair Terms Checker. So I wanted to take you through some of the thinking behind the user experience, the copywriting that goes behind some of the bits and pieces that have gone into building out this app. So to start with, we're trying to be really friendly and conversational. One of the things that's interesting about the Joseph platform is that you can have your app in either like a chatbot format or a form format. Now, I don't actually like the way that the chatbot format is formatted. If I could perhaps do another video if anyone wants it on showing you what this bot actually looks like when it's in the chat format. This is in the form format, but the way that I've kind of structured the form is so that you only kind of get served questions a few at a time, because I really want to structure people's thinking, and I don't want them to get too distracted by all the other bits and pieces. I want them to move along as they go. So that's meant adding in a few extra things because I have to get the bot to stop, think about what the next question is so that it doesn't skip ahead and show you all the other questions before you've answered the first one, if that makes sense. So obviously, I want people to understand that this isn't legal advice. Of course, I'm a lawyer. I've got to have a disclaimer on my bots and apps. So the first thing that they have to do is agree. Now, I've used throughout this, and I think this is a good idea if you can have it, is a see you later kind of section. And I have this, okay, too bad, like too bad, so sad, section that I reused. Anytime that anyone kind of selects an option, and this is similar to like a choose your own adventure, right? Those books that we used to read back in the 90s. Uh, so that there's a section that you've got there that's like, okay, well, see you later. So it's pretty easy if you have it once, and then you can repoint everyone to it whenever there's a see you later section. So if they do decide to agree and go ahead, one of the things that I've changed recently after user testing was having the email up the front. I did have it down the end, but I found that people were missing it, and then they were like, "Oh, this bot's dumb. It's not letting me kind of submit because they didn't enter in their email address." But that was my fault. It's not their fault for not seeing where to put their email address. That's my fault on user design. So I've experimented and put it back up the front to see. I have a feeling that people test out this app and will put in a fake email address just because they want to check it out, but they don't want me to know who they are, which is totally fair enough. But I'll report back and let you know if that happens. And if that's you, hopefully you're having a little giggle right now. But so from putting in the email address, then there's some logic there that means they can't move forward until they hit OK. So from here, this is one of the optionality splits that I did have in my previous video that I talked about, where initially I was mapping out the process flow, and you can see that I thought, first of all, the first thing would be that it would split about yes, let's go. And then I thought it would be, do you know whether or not these laws apply? However, the thing that I found as I was building it was that if I wanted to refer to the type of person that was using the contract from the other party, I needed to ask that question before the split. Otherwise, if people didn't go down one particular route here, if they were like, no, I already know these laws apply, let's just go to the unfair terms part, then this wouldn't show up. So hopefully that makes sense. So I had to move that around from my original mapping, then I had to change that in the build. So I should technically be working to update this map so that it's an accurate reflection of what's in the actual app. Sorry, this map to the app. So from here, this is the split bit where what we're pointing out is, okay, do you know whether or not the laws apply and you just want to check your term? Or do you not know whether or not what these new laws are and you need to know whether or not they apply and then maybe you'll check your term later. So there's two options here. And the yes, please, as you can see, it's the same as what's in my original mind map. Yes, please, or skip ahead. So to show you some of it, I'll say yes, let's skip ahead. Hopefully most of us know that unfair contract terms already applied to consumers. They also have already applied to small businesses. However, the difference that's coming in Australia this year is that the kind of threshold for what classifies as a small business is lifting up considerably. So it's going to be less than 100 full-time employees, or it's going to be, it's kind of one of a few different options. So here you can see when you think about who's going to be answering this question, the threshold is fewer than 100 or 100 or more. However, when you think about your users, some of them would be working with a mix. Some of them might be working with companies that have 20 employees and they might have one or two that are over 100. They might be working with mostly over 100, employees, and maybe they're under, and maybe they have no idea. Like they might not know the business size of their suppliers. So I think it's important to think of this from a few different perspectives. And when I originally built this out, I don't know if it's in, it probably will be in here. Whoops. So you can see I've built out only 3 limbs, but then as I was building it in the actual app, and I saw it there, I was like, actually, some people might have both. So here I only had 3 limbs, but then when I came to build it, I was like, I need to have something that's a mix of both. And what's good about that is actually, if they pick this option of a mix, it's the same as not sure actually, because you want to always err on the side of a bit more compliance. Obviously, this tool isn't, legal advice, so they need to go and get stuff elsewhere, but that's kind of how I decided to deal with that so that they get both. So to show you for completeness, that one of the other steps is if you've got over more than 100 full-time employees for the business that you're dealing with, then you look at turnover. So again, you'll see in the map where this one goes to turnover, I only had the 3 there. Yes, more than 10, less than 10 million, or not sure. And so I've applied the same approach where there's probably going to be a mix. Suppliers could earn more than $10 million and some might earn less. And other people might have no idea what their suppliers earn. So we want to make sure that we're covering those from the user's perspective. Otherwise, if they were to come here and say, well, there's an option that I need that's not here, they kind of get stumped and they might go away. So then one of the overarching things to remember, oh, and I should say I've got different little hinties along here all the way, which I do like being able to have some of those extra hints. So you don't have to have heaps of explanation. If there's something that's kind of useful, and I think most people who are used to using online tools now, if they get stuck, they do think to look for a hint, and that can potentially help them out. I like to look for hints. So hopefully that's useful. Let me know as you test out the app whether or not it pops out for you. So then another threshold question, and again, this is where your thinking, your legal advisory hat kind of comes on and your analysis where we're thinking about all the rules of if something is completely negotiated, is it a standard process, or is there a little bit of negotiation? And so this is when you are putting your legal hat on and then putting that into the app itself. So here for lots of negotiation, I'm reminding them that, hey, uh, it's pretty unlikely that even if you are negotiating every single term in your contract, I think I just don't think that there's many people that do that with smaller businesses, and even with larger businesses. Uh, I think that there's still some clauses where you lots of companies say, well, this is our standard position and that's what applies. So I always think that we err on the side of kind of explaining things again and not being like whatever. But it's up to the user here. They can say, no worries, I don't need to check my terms, and then off they go. So then if they say, let's check the terms, then from here, they're going, this is where there's the point where they go all the way back down across to, now we're on that let's check the terms kind of stream, because we've done the do the laws apply stream of option, and now we're in the fair term checker option. So here's where you enter the type of agreement, name, and this is a free text field. Always dangerous to have free text as opposed to drop downs, but we'll see how it goes. I think this is a good one because it's whether or not people want to put in code names or whatever it is that they are actually call the agreement. Then the clause reference. So again, I've got some examples here, whether or not it will be useful in that ultimate tool that gets put out, the checker tracker, to put the entire clause so you can see the actual clause there, something that I'll maybe turn my mind to next. Then I'm taking them through the different elements. So originally when I did this, I actually had it on a 5-point scale. I think I had orange and maybe blue or something in there as well, but it looked quite clunky. And I also had it with 1, 2, 3, 4, like a number, then a color, and then the explanation, but it looked quite busy. I don't know if I've got an example of that I can show you, but I looked quite busy, so I stripped it right down. So it was just the 3 potential answers. Perhaps it looks a bit oversimplified, but I think it helps people to go through it a little bit quicker and kind of understand that, well, it kind of pushes that notion that this is just for general information only. So then we're looking at all the different factors. So readability, super important now for transparency, easy to read, easy to find, is going to be a key measure of transparency. So let's say that it's hard to find. Yes, sometimes we negotiate this particular term. And then these are some of the terms that often particularly on the lookout for, that I think we need to be particularly on the lookout for, because they're often one-way rights that seem to crop up in a lot of agreements. And then you can see that there's some particular clause types or term types which are excluded from um, unfair contract terms. So setting the upfront price, you can't really say, well, that's unfair. And, whoops, I should stop touching my camera there. So then we say whether or not it's reasonably necessary. Okay, we could maybe make it a bit more reasonable. Why does the business need this term? And you could say to protect from early termination, we need to cover upfront costs. I don't think that makes sense. Anyway, we'll see. No, we've done nothing to balance the issues. Or you might say, yes, we've made some minor attempts to balance, and that's when you would capture, we've given a longer notice period and help to transition, for example. So here we go. We're at the pointy end of things. Tessa Testerton. That's my testing name. Enter the date of checking. So from a underlying app point of view, and you'll see I've made this comment here, it would be something that I would love to have in Joseph where, and maybe it is, Joseph team, let me know, that that date could be auto added in without the person using the application having to select it. So I'm going to enter the date that I've done the checking. That's there. Then encouraging people to revisit. And you can see one of the fun calculations that you can do there is saying, well, here's the date based on 6 months from that date. So not that it's maybe that hard to figure out yourself, but remembering that these laws come in October 2023. So there we go. Great work by me. And then the reason for the pausing here is just I wanted people to actually take that active step to say calculate it. It's already technically been calculated in the background. Oh, I got a potentially unfair. And in the previous episodes, you've seen that document that comes with all the options in it. And so what this flowchart is doing is a flowchart. What this flow is the optionality is doing is based on the score from the answers. It's showing one image or it's going down a different optionality pathway. So I don't know if I mapped that out here because I kind of already had it in my head. And at this point, I think I kind of was building in the app, which I know I said don't do, but anyway, sometimes it gets done that last kind of 10, 20%. So you can see I've gotten 19 out of 35, and there's some reminders here on different bits and pieces. Hey, we're going to send this to you. Would you like to book in a contract operations strategy session with Verity? Why wouldn't you? So I've added in kind of the option to book in that session. And then the other thing that I think is really important, which is often quite tricky, is trying to make sure that people remember to send the thing. Like you have to send it. So I've got this hit submit now, like, please, please, please hit send, because I think people get to the end and they're kind of like, okay, done. So getting them to actually submit it so that way they get the full benefit of seeing the report at the end, and I get it's kind of like a lead magnet capture for me, and I really want to kind of understand and get feedback on how this was to use and interact with. So if I don't have people's contact details, I can't do that. That's about it on the actual like going through the app. Obviously, it doesn't take that long each time you go through it, but interested in your thoughts, feel free to have a play. Hopefully the link will be somewhere near this video and you can test it out for yourself. Thanks again, and do reach out if you want to have a chat about your contract operations strategy before the unfair contract terms come in. Bye for now.